Hey guys, welcome back to Thriving in Love podcast, the podcast that challenges the status quo so couples can thrive as their authentic selves. Today on the show, we have Maria Fuentes. She is a self mastery coach that specializes in confidence, emotions, and relationships. Maria, hi, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to get this conversation going.
Yeah, me too. I am obsessed with your story and your content, and I am excited to dive into all of it today.
Same. I love it. And I love how we were just talking a little bit before recording about your whole relationship and marriage and how you kind of stayed true to yourself when you needed some change. So I think as women, it's so powerful when we understand our emotions, what we need, and we're able to articulate that from a place of power. So let's dive in.
Yeah, I love how you said that from a place of power. Do you mind diving into why it is so important for us to control our emotions and like how do emotions and power go hand in hand?
So I think as women, we're so emotional. We're driven mostly by emotions. Let's be honest, right? We feel something, everything's interconnected for us. I worked with a relationship coach once, and he's the one that gave me this example, and it made sense. He's like, as women, everything's connected. What you did last night, what you did 2 years ago, what you did this morning, it's all like one big vine. Whereas men, they compartmentalize things, right? They're able to see things in boxes. So if they're cooking dinner, they're just cooking dinner. If they're talking to us, they're just talking to us. But we see everything so connected. So I really truly believe that as women, we're the gatekeepers of emotions. And we get to sail that ship, especially in relationships. And the way that you become really stable and grounded in yourself and how you can set that gatekeeper status is by really understanding yourself and going deep into yourself, but also not thinking that you have to be perfect. It's more of an understanding. For me, it was healing the parts of me that felt unsafe, the parts of me that needed that validation from other people, especially men, especially in relationships, and learning to give that to myself. I did a lot of inner child work. And at the end of the day, we're all big children, right? And if we went through a lot of trauma or a lot of pain growing up, I don't think I know for a fact that that doesn't really get resolved unless we can acknowledge it and rearrange those emotions to more positive ones and release them. And so a lot of my work was inner child healing and letting my little Maria know that she's safe now, she's taken care of, that adult Maria's got her, and that she doesn't have to be afraid anymore of a lot of things.
And did you have to do that work before getting into the relationship you're in now? Or is it something that you started once you got into this relationship?
No, so my journey's been, so I was married, and about like, I don't know, 6, 7 months before my divorce, I started therapy. But I wanted to
Wow.
start relationship therapy because I thought my relationship, my marriage was wrong. And that's why I was so unhappy. So 4 years ago, I started this journey of like looking inside, but I didn't do it thinking I was going to really like look in deep within myself. That came after. I thought I just had to fix my marriage and my happiness would come right back, you know? But I was so
Yes.
unhappy with myself for so long. And I didn't realize it. And I put so much of my happiness into my relationship and based it off that. And so through that journey, then I got a divorce. Then I jumped right into a relationship for 2 years,
As we do.
as we
Yeah.
do. And honestly, a relationship coach I worked with also told me that in relationships is where we really truly find ourselves, right? A lot of people try to avoid and stay alone for a long time. And I truly believe that you do need time alone. I truly believe that alone time and enjoying
Mhm.
your solitude is so important in your growth. But I also believe that in relationships is how you understand yourself deeply in heartbreak, right? And in these dark moments that
Yeah.
we feel like our life is collapsing, we get to choose how we come to the other side. So ended the second relationship after the marriage, kept doing the work. So him and I went to my boyfriend and I, not my husband, but my boyfriend and I started going to therapy together. I went deep into my own hypnotherapy, worked with shamans, went to retreats. Like I really for about 2 years just I don't know how you are, but if I feel like there's something I need to work on, I go
I
full
go
on.
all in. Yeah. Oh, I think that is the masculine energy in us that we're
Yes.
like, okay, get into solution mode and hurry up and like get this resolved and out of the way so that we can continue on with our life. But
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of like a blessing and a curse at the same time. Like, as long as you have the balance of remembering that there's a life outside of healing and you can also enjoy living, like enjoying that time in relationship with your partner while also working on your relationship. If you can master that, then that's the key to healthy, thriving relationships long term.
Long
Because
term.
if people fall into this cycle where they go deep into the healing cycle and then they come out and they're like, okay, we're great, let's go. And then they let life happen. And then 5 years down the road, they fall back into some really big issues. But it's because they don't maintain that consistent work every day and they wait until they bubble up and fall.
And fall, right?
So I love like consistent relationship work on the daily, on the weekly. Like that's how you stay connected and thriving and highly energetic.
Yeah, totally. And I love that you posted something recently that you said, like, don't get hung up on the healing. Like, healing isn't just linear. Like, don't get hung up on just doing that. Because I think as
No.
living in our masculine, and let's say type A type of women, where we found something that maybe isn't perfect in us, we want to work on, we want to
Mm-hmm.
heal, then we can hyper focus on it. And that can become very negative too and
Yeah.
draining to our soul.
Literally, yes. And it can also take away from the joy. And joy is such an important emotion for us to tap into the energy of manifesting our life, right? And like bringing in the miracles and synchronicities that we are here to ultimately do and be in. I think my biggest life's work is learning how to balance the two.
Mm.
And I'm trying to get better and better at it. So, like, the healing ends up being less of an energy drain and ends up being more of like okay, we're getting a little in our depressive energy, let's get back up, and like trying to like really master that. I think that's where I'm at right now.
Totally. And that's why I call myself a self mastery coach, because I think it's a lifelong journey. And when people hear that, they're like, they probably think, oh, I can't master myself. Well, you can, and you should, right? We try to master our jobs. We try to master our relationships. We try to master all these things outside of us. But what if we have like enough power to want to self master our emotions, our confidence, how we show up in the world? So I love that
Mm-hmm.
you're finding that balance. To me, I don't know that that balance even exists. I just think some days I'm a little more here, a little less there. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the balance in like being okay with that. Because for me, if my routine
Yes.
is like shaken up, like we were actually supposed to record yesterday and I completely dropped the ball. And that never happens to me. I was so hard on myself. Talk about trying to
Oh
find
my
that balance. I
gosh.
was so hard on myself. I'm like, oh, I don't like wasting people's time, So balancing those emotions for me is like recognizing it and be like, okay, no more shaming, letting it go. It's okay. And moving
You
on.
know, I just got chills as you said that because when that happened yesterday, I fell into like a unworthiness energy and I caught
Right.
myself. At first, my initial reaction was, wow, I'm not worthy of being important to someone's time. That's the point of mastery. In the past, I would feel that and let that sit with me and spill into everything else and allow it to just like kind of take over my life. Versus now, I was like, in the moment, it lasted like maybe less than 5 minutes. And I was like, no, shit happens. Humans are human. I'm sure something came up. The world doesn't revolve around me.
Right. Oh my God. I love
Calm down.
that because people we end up thinking everything's personal and that everything is just for us. And you're right. Like
Literally.
I had to shake it up. And my boyfriend came into the room. I was organizing things. He goes, babe, are you feeling out of control? Is that why you're organizing things? And I was like, yeah. Okay. It's making me feel better about leaving her hanging right now. So I'm going to
Oh my
organize
God.
clothes. But
I think
understanding
it
it's
was a
not,
good learning lesson for both of us, though.
yeah.
And I think that like everything happens for a reason. And I love that everything's just an opportunity for you to go deeper into your own self and master yourself even more.
Yeah. Or the opposite. Like you said, people get hung up and like the woe is me, this happened to me. And you're right, a past version of me would have been like, well, I'm not meant to be on podcasts and do all these things that I'm juggling 1,000 things. I'm obviously no, I can't handle it.
Overexerting. Yeah.
Can't do it. I'm overwhelmed. I should just quit when I start, like, but now I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it is what it is. I forgive myself. We can only move on and
And
work.
that compassion and grace is where I believe that the feminine comes into play, right? So in my relationship, I see my husband is so hard on himself. And
Mm.
I also find myself in those moments. And like when he's hard on himself, I'm always like, babe, like it's not the end of the world. We got this. Like let world freaking crumble and fall. We've been poor before. We'll be fine. Like we can get through anything together, long as we support each other and encourage each other. And it's kind of, and then I have to do that for myself too.
Mhm. Yep. And I think that's where, as women, when we're not grounded in ourselves, we look for men and our partners to give that to ourselves. But the truth is that they won't ever be able to give it to us like we can.
Because of what you said earlier about us connecting everything to each
Mm.
other through emotions, and they compartmentalize things. So that's fascinating because I never thought about it that way, but it's so true.
Because you always hear what's the biggest thing in fights is, well, he's always trying to fix things. And we just want to
Hmm.
be heard and understood. But they're
Yeah.
logical creatures. That's not their innate feeling, right? And of course, you can talk about it. I mean, my boyfriend's always like, I'm not trying to fix it. I just want to, so he is aware of it. So, like, letting your partner know, hey, I really just want to like load my feelings, but I don't need it fixed.
Yeah.
That's where girlfriends are. And for so long, I just cared about my partner doing it, right? But that's what girlfriends are for.
Yeah. I love that you said that because for the first 6 years of my marriage, I was so codependent and I ended up actually losing a lot of my friends. And at the time, I was like, I don't need you guys. I got my man.
Yeah.
Realizing that I don't have a support system. When I started living alone, I was so intentional about Friday nights are my time with my girlfriends and I'll see you on Saturday. Have to set those boundaries because if we don't, we're not fulfilling our own souls and we're caving into that comfort zone of wanting to just cuddle on the couch with our man because that's what I'd rather be doing than going to dinner, getting dressed up, spending the money. You know what I mean? Like, I love my girlfriends. I love it when we all just like come over each other's houses and just like chill. But it is a bit more energy.
Mm-hmm.
It requires, especially if you're an introvert, it requires you to be present more versus with your man, which I'm catching myself as I say this right now, where it's like you should be present with your man too. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on
I
like
completely
that
get that.
comfort zone?
Right. It is a comfort thing, right? With women, like you said, we have to be more aware because we know that they want to be heard just as much as we want to be heard. You can't really men don't, I mean, I'm sure your husband's not like, honey, I want to talk about something for 2 hours.
No,
I really want you to pay attention to me. Where our
no,
girlfriends will
that's
go
me.
on and on. Yeah. Our girlfriends will go on and on about the same subject for the whole night. So it
Yeah.
makes sense. But I think that's our masculine energy too, right? Like for a long time I repelled or I found myself with girlfriends who were super needy and the masculine in me wanted to rescue and save them and help them.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. How did you find yourself in that? Because I know you said you've been in your masculine a lot
Yes.
before.
I think that's why I distanced myself from women for a while is because I felt like everybody's trauma dumping on me. And I think as unconscious healers, we exude that safety and energy for people to trauma dump onto us. And I'm like, why are you like telling me your deepest, darkest secrets? Like, and I'm able to hold it and listen and respond, but it drained me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I don't feel heard. I feel like I'm everyone's therapist.
Totally. But once you started doing it for yourself, now you can hold that space in a different way, right?
Oh, yeah, and now I'm also able to set the boundary, right? Where it's like, if I sense something is going too dark or too deep, I just like bring it back. And I'm just like, okay, so tell me about your job or change the subject. Being consciously aware of making sure that it's not happening and being in control in the moment. I think that's the biggest thing.
And again, as women, that's so important. That's what I said earlier. I was telling my boyfriend this the other day. I was like, I used to just to be liked by women. I would be like, oh yeah, talk to me about your problems. Oh yeah, F that guy and screw your job. And when in reality, I was
Yeah.
like, no, I kind of see your boyfriend's point and I kind of see why your boss is mad at you. But I couldn't say
But
those.
girls don't want to hear that. Oh my God. Yes.
I would fight
My
with that
sister
so much.
literally, she's like, she's like, you're such a dude. You're not a girl's girl. And I was
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? And she's like, you're always trying to fix my problems. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I
No,
don't
I
know how
totally.
else to like be a good friend because like you have a problem and I know I can see all the sides. I know exactly but that's why we end up being coaches. Like we're
Right.
great as coaches.
We're good coaches, maybe girlfriends. No, I'm kidding. We're better girlfriends
Yeah.
now because, like you said, you can bring
Yeah.
it back and you're in a
Hmm.
powerful place where you're like, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole with you. I'm not the friend. I just had a girlfriend go through a breakup, and I'm not the friend that's going to sit there and badmouth your ex.
Yeah.
I will be the friend that's going to like vision board with you, and we're going to come up with a plan for you to get your best
Yes.
life in place. I'm that friend.
That.
But again, we have to go through emotions. So, and I think it's powerful to know like that's not a powerful place for me to be as a friend. I can't be that friend. Come to me when you're I'm ready to go kick ass in the world, and we're gonna get this together.
100%. And
Yeah.
I've also noticed that my friends who are in therapy also have a lot better of a grasp on what they share and what they don't share, in their circles. Like, give me high level. I'm not your therapist. You know what I mean?
Yes, I love that.
And like I want to be there for you and I want to know what's going on in your life, but I also don't want the responsibility of carrying your emotions just because I can.
Right. Like, where's your self-awareness? Where are you? Like,
Hmm.
there's always, we all have blind spots. And I'm sure you've hired coaches and you've worked with people because we do have blind spots. But as friends, you're right. We can't, just like we can't dump to our relationship and our partners, you can't do that with friends either because it's draining. And I've become very
Hmm.
selective. I don't know about you, but like the more I grow and evolve, like the more selective I am with who I let in my energy. And a lot of friends have fallen off because of that.
Truly. And I don't think that that is a bad thing or like it makes us selfish or anything like that. I think what it means is that we are very hyper aware of where we're spending our time and energy because our careers need us to be in our full presence. The way I see it is like I'm so careful about my personal life and where I spend my time and energy so that I can have the energy to hold for my clients, and that also is so draining. And in the best way, I want to pour into them, but that's why self-care is like a non-negotiable for me. What you were saying earlier, I really, really liked because you said time alone and solitude is so incredibly important, but also relationships are so incredibly important. So I think that's what really goes into like knowing where are you spending that time and energy and making sure that you are staying balanced in who you are and what you have to offer.
Yeah. And that, correct me if it's wrong, if this is wrong for you, but for me, it was being very vulnerable and raw. And that's tapping into that femininity where before I wouldn't speak my truth. I wouldn't say what I needed. I expected them to understand and know what I needed without me even saying it. And then I was so resentful and so mad when it wouldn't happen.
Yes, 100%. And I think that is when women are in their masculine, their wounded masculine energy. Not, I mean, I think now you're in a very like healthy masculine energy where you know when to bring in that feminine. But when we're in that wounded masculine, we expect things from our partners and we become passive aggressive when we don't receive what we are expecting. And that I believe is like a control thing. I don't know about you, but I used to like try to like manipulate and control my man to like respond in the way that I wanted him to instead of just clearly and concisely being like, "Hey babe, like can you just put your phone away tonight?" Why did we make life so complicated?
Yeah, it's true. Because there's times that we are going to be needier, right? Like you said, putting
Mhm.
your phone away, but it's how we tap into that femininity with a man because men are heroes, right? They want to feel like our knight in shining armors. If you start
Mhm.
using you statements and attacking and you don't do this and you don't do that and
Mhm.
they're going to stop doing overall. I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, we don't like it when bosses
Yeah.
act that way. We don't like it when other people in our lives treat us like we should know better and do better, and yet we treat our man that way, and then we're so mad that they don't do, and then they continue not doing. But it's almost our responsibility to understand where we are emotionally, what we need, so that we can voice that, and then calling it when it's not the relationship for you. If you've done this and the person's not being receptive and isn't allowing you to be in that feminine, then it's definitely the wrong relationship.
So how are you able to tell that difference? I think I need safety first before I can become vulnerable,
Yes. So
right?
I think
Like
having those hard conversations up front, I think we're all so scared to. Even in the dating, I just created a dating masterclass that I'm releasing here soon, not to try to plug that in, but
plug it in. Yes. Hell yeah, that sounds amazing.
yeah, I'm excited for this because I think getting really clear and concise and having those hard talks at the beginning, and you can do it in a very powerful way, right? But as women, if we know what we want and you go into a relationship, into the dating scene, knowing what you want, the core values, the things that matter, that are foundational, that's what's going to guide your relationship. If one of
Mm,
you wants to get married one day and one of you maybe wants to get married, there's going to be conflict. If one of you
yeah.
really loves spending family time and the other one hates spending family time, there's going to be conflict. If one of you
Yeah.
is an extrovert that wants to party all the time and the other one's an introvert that wants to be home all the time, there's going to be conflict, right? So, even to that base level, I would say being really open about, hey, this is what I need, this is what I can do and I can't do. Where are you at in these things, right? And then that starts creating that. I feel like that vulnerability and that communication starts creating the safety and being able to trust each other. And then you allow yourself slowly but surely to, as a woman especially, to lean into that softness, and you'll start to see how they respond too. How is this man
Yeah.
responding to you, you know?
Mhm. I think it takes so much confidence.
Yes.
as like former people pleasers to be able to just like even know what you want and like then ask, have the courage and the confidence to ask for it
Yeah.
and risk that like, oh, this person seems amazing and like I really want to be with them and I may risk losing them if I say what I think, what I want, what I need.
Yeah. I think shifting the perspective for me was I'm going to lose them if I don't. It's just going to take longer and I'm going to be way more invested later
I
emotionally.
love that.
Right? Like
Yes.
if we shift the, because it's always the things at the beginning of a relationship that we don't speak up on, that you know what they are. Like, because as women, we're like, we call them red flags. And I honestly hate that term because they're
Yeah.
not red flags. Everything's a reflection of us. But if it's causing some issues, let's talk about it instead of holding it in.
Mm.
Always those things that end up breaking up relationships later. So
Yeah,
let's just get it all
100%.
cleared out in the beginning,
Oh, saving time and energy. I love it.
Gotta be efficient around here.
It's okay. I want to go back to talking about your masculine energy and how do you feel when you're in your masculine versus when you're in your feminine?
When I'm in my masculine, I have to control things. I have to get things done. And my validation and self worth comes from doing 100%. And when I'm in my feminine, which is a new feeling for me, I've only tapped into it here in the last like 6 months, I would say. I feel at ease just by being. I feel grounded,
Mm,
and just by being, I feel flowy. I feel less heavy. I feel like I can not do anything and feel fulfilled versus in my masculine, I know I have to do and do and do.
yeah.
And so I've learned that when I'm working, it's so good, right? In business, it's such a good thing to tap into
Yeah.
your feminine, I mean, into your masculine, sorry, but also some of your feminine energy as well, because you have to be vulnerable. And there's certain traits from your feminine energy that I do believe have to go into your work. And actually, before I finish this sentence, I've noticed that in my business and in my work, it's helped me be more feminine because in the past I was more about results and just money. And now that I'm actually
Yeah.
listening and being more nurturing and caring to my clients, they like love it more, you know? How crazy.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
100%. I know, right? Like, oh, they like being heard?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, brand new information to me.
Right.
But it does go back to that conversation we we're having about friends, where it's like, you become a better friend when you learn how to just simply sit and listen. And
Yeah.
like being in that feminine energy with the people that you love and the people
Right.
that are here that you're here to serve, like as, a goddess that you are. Like
Yeah.
we're
And I think,
here
yeah,
to hold that
knowing
space for them.
totally. And knowing that you are a goddess, right? Like women, if you're
Yeah.
listening to this, you don't need a status, a certain amount of money, a certain look,
No.
a certain anything. I've actually been more confident now being 10, 15 pounds heavier than I've ever been, just because I'm so
I think when I was opening up into my goddess energy, I ended up gaining a little more weight in my like midsection, but I think that's like our womb expanding to hold that goddess energy inside
I
of
love
us. And
that.
I think it like when you look at the Greek statues of these goddesses, they all have a heavier midsection
Oh,
and
you're
like wider
right.
hips. Like that's a womanly goddess look.
Yeah, you're so right. I never even thought of that because it was when I went to my spiritual retreat in March that I started gaining some like
Hmm.
fat in my midsection. I never used to have fat there. And it was a theme that kept coming up in my retreat was heal your womb, heal your womb. And it was like my mother line and my mother trauma and all of
Yes.
that feminine energy. And I'm not an expert in this because there's definitely people in their field in spirituality that are really good at explaining this. But I did work with a healer and she said to me, your lineage from the moment your mom's pregnant with you, you are attached to your mom's energy, your grandma's energy. So if you look down that line of lineage and the trauma and the pain, you carry all of that. And
Yes.
and so if you're not able to be aware of it at least and understand where maybe these cycles are, if you are living the same life that your mom used to live or your grandma lived, like being able to interrupt it and be like, that's not the life I want, and being able
Yes.
to energetically remove yourself from that space.
And when you remove yourself from that space, that's when expansion happens. So when I like to say like hell is contraction, heaven is expansion,
Mhm.
right? So in order to heal that trauma that we hold on to from past lives, from our ancestors, from our lineage, you need to create space so that you can have that space to work through your emotions and your neural pathways and your energy and then alchemize that. And when you alchemize that, you're getting the energy riven up into your chakra system
Yeah.
to go up and release, to turn that darkness into more love energy. And
Yeah.
that's how you end up coming back into, you know, the body that you love and adore.
I
But
love
it is a process and it's all physical as much as it is energetic.
Yes. And energetic is so hard to explain, but it's a feeling and we all feel it. You know, you're around somebody, their energy's off, you don't like being around them. That's the energy, like you were saying, you have to understand in yourself and then alchemize and move. And for me, I don't know what techniques you have, but I'll share some of mine. My emotions have always dictated my life. And that's where I became part of like specializing in emotions. And tapping has helped when I hit my meridian points. Tapping has helped
Yeah.
a lot. And crying is such a
Yes.
release, right? We can't control what happens to us, but our emotional reaction to what happens to us gets stored in our physical bodies. And unless we're able to
Hmm.
release that by crying, walking, laughing, moving, tapping, whatever it is that you can do, it's going to get stored
Hmm.
there.
And that's like all somatic, right? And I think that that's like a lot of people in the wellness and spirituality space have been doing an amazing job helping people with their mindset work. But that's step one, in my opinion, is that awareness and that like being able to be conscious of your thoughts and your feelings. But then that step two is that somatic work is like, okay, now that we have that awareness, how can we actually do something about this and release it from our bodies and actually embody the change that we want to create, not only within ourselves, but in our external reality too.
Yeah. And how good does it feel to have a good cry? It feels
Oh my
amazing.
gosh. And a good dance party cry, like,
Yes.
oh my God, I think that was the most healing shit ever.
Such a
Just,
release.
I listen to some like, Billie Eilish sometimes, and I'm just like screaming and crying and like pounding on the floor and just like thinking about like the people in my life that just brought me so much misery and just made me feel so unworthy and made me feel so small. And I'm just like, fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
oh, just like let it out. It is
Love it.
so healing.
Yes, I love that because it's so funny. I take really long drives and I'll listen to like heartbreak songs and I'll cry
Yes.
and,
Yes.
and release some of it. And sometimes, I mean, I'm in a happy relationship. It has nothing to do with my past
Nothing.
people. It's
Yes.
just like whatever. Sometimes it's before my period. Truly, it's just I'm emotional and I'm
Hmm.
embracing it. Where in my masculine before, I would have been like, "Why are you emotional?" I would have been judging myself, and I would have pushed through it and gotten shit done, but not in an aligned way. And then I would have been exhausted. You know, I would hit walls. I think that's where burnout comes, and it's all energetics. And I don't believe in burnout anymore because if I can just take a few minutes to myself every day, because you
Yeah.
know, somatically, you feel it. I mean, I get tension in my shoulders, I get tension in my back. Your body will
Hmm.
tell you when there's something that's off. You have to listen, right?
Yeah. They used to say like self love is when you put your ego aside and listen to your body.
Mm,
And I think that came into my awareness and like I felt it and I was just like, oh my gosh, like there's so many times where I will gaslight myself. For instance, literally 2 weeks ago or whatever, it was my birthday. And we were in Mexico for my sister in law's wedding. And nobody was making a big deal about my birthday, obviously, because it's my sister in law's wedding. And the guy that she married, our brother in law now, he like forgot to wish me happy birthday all day. And I made it all about me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm here for his wedding and he didn't even wish me happy birthday. And my husband was just like observing me. And I like literally was just like going through this whole process on my own in front of him. And I was just like, wait, but like it's his wedding. Like I shouldn't have to care about this. Like, why am I doing this? And like having that process of like immediately, it just, I needed to do that, right? To have that moment of not gaslighting myself and being like, stop trying to make this all about you, but allowing myself to feel whatever was coming out and then soothing myself through it, I
mhm.
think is the biggest difference of how I process my emotions now versus like before I was just be like, you're making it all about yourself. Like
Right.
stop feeling. No, feel it. Let it flow through.
Yeah, and then what is it there to teach you, right? Because after we let it flow
Hmm.
through, it's like every emotion's a teacher. And
Yeah,
maybe, I mean, do you know what it was there to teach you? Like at that moment, did you like get to that point in the
I did. Yeah. And I realized that it's okay to speak up and, I am worthy of a happy birthday. So then the next day, I actually was like, oh, hey, you forgot to wish me happy birthday, but it's all good. And he was like really upset. He was just like, oh shit. Like I could see it in his face. Like, and
Yeah.
then he was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, oh, like that's okay. And it's because like I don't want to keep gaslighting myself and not ask for what I want and need just because like, yeah, it's his wedding. Yeah, he has better things to worry about. But I had to detach from the emotion of like making it about him, how he cares about me. That's what I had to let go of. It
Right.
has nothing to do with like how people feel about me, but I am also still worthy of speaking my truths and asking for what I want.
Yes. And I love that because you're right. I mean, and seeing his reaction, I'm sure it helped you realize like it had nothing to do with me. Like he feels so sad. Right.
This guy's got like 80 people, friends and family coming from God knows where to his wedding. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. And I love that you still said something because we are all worthy of saying what we feel. It can't be in a unleashing way. I had a mentor say, the power of women, I'm probably going to butcher what she said, but it was along the lines of, we are all volcanoes and our power lies in not exploding and choosing not to erupt. Right?
mm-hmm.
So we're able to just hold that space and be like, okay, this is how I feel. And I can say it in a loving, caring way or in a soft way. I used to
Mm-hmm.
think like using those words soft and submissive and all these words were like, ugh, like, oh, I would never submit to a man. Are you kidding me? I would never be super soft. And
Yeah.
now I see no other way because that's how I would want to be spoken to.
Mm-hmm. How would you define submissive to a man
And
in
I,
your
I
own
still don't
words?
love the word, just it's
I
still,
know.
but
Same.
to just give in, and I've caught myself
Mm-hmm.
so many times emotionally, right? Give in emotionally, where my boyfriend will try to do something for me or he'll say something to me and I'll have to actually pause and take a minute and be like, he's doing this because he loves me and cares for me. I need to be open to receive it instead of being like, no, it's okay. I've got it. No, I can pay for that. No, I can do this.
Yes.
Right. And so to me, that's submission because I'm submitting my masculine energy to him and I don't need it. When I'm with him, I'm like, I'm full feminine. I'm all yours. I'm all in. I think that word can get misused into like, oh, I just give in to my man and he does whatever. No, he takes me into consideration every decision we make, but I also let him lead.
Yes.
There's decisions I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to make. And I can voice that now and be like, I don't care about any of this. You have full control over that.
Yes. And that's why I always say relationships cannot be 50-50 because that is going to cause both of you to hit burnout.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have things that you care about and that they care about and co-create the life that you are trying to create together using each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
I am a better cook. I enjoy it, so I cook and he cleans. I do take care of the house more. He makes more money than I do. We have our strengths, we have our weaknesses. I don't expect him to do the same housework and this and that because I don't want to work as hard as he does.
Right.
And before I used to resent it because I was in my masculine thinking that I have to earn as
Mm.
much as he does and I have to be as ambitious as he is. And I was just pushing myself, pushing myself, pushing myself. And my entire body was just like, no, I don't want to work this hard. We have a successful man for a reason. Like,
Right.
why do I have to earn but I had this like mindset thing because my mom just never made her own money
Mm.
and had to give up all her freedom because she always has to ask my dad for money. And that was such a huge trauma that I had to like go through and unlearn and realize that like I am not my mother, this is not my father. I am making my own money and if I needed to, support myself, I totally can. But when it comes to house bills, I don't need to pay them.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, I've had this conversation with my boyfriend. Now we don't live together, but I mean, like I said, have the hard conversations at the beginning
Yeah,
because there will become problems later. And in the past,
totally.
I've been in a relationship where I went 50-50 on finances because I had the opposite that I felt like my ex-husband controlled our finances. So when I moved in with my ex-boyfriend, I was like, well, we'll go 50-50. And I was so resentful. I was so angry. I was so mad because that's
Yeah.
not what I wanted. I don't want to worry about that, right? Like I'll pay for
Yes.
other things. I'll pay for some of our vacations, but like the
100%.
house,
Yes.
make it a house or buy me a house, I'll make it a home. Like I'll do the
Yes.
other thing.
And
And
we
I love it.
do. We
Right.
really do.
Because there's things that they don't have monetary worth that women do, and they're so overlooked. And I think only a man that's lived by himself or has enough like self-awareness can understand that.
Yeah.
right? The cleaning, the little things, the remembering of certain things and making it a home and making things feel good.
So many men have mothers that just did everything without a single complaint. And they
Right.
expect that from their potential partners and their wives. And they have a rude awakening. And those are I think, the relationships that struggle the most because
Yeah.
we're modern women and it's 2023. Like, if you want a partner who is going to be like your mother, you have to go out of America to find her.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Totally. Totally. Because that doesn't exist, especially if women are working, right? There has to be a balance. There has to be a give and take. And like you said, it'll never
and
be
it,
50-50.
and those are usually the men that are attracted to ambitious women, and they are not attracted to women that aren't ambitious, you know? And I think that's why they struggle so much.
Because there is a level of, if you're wanting somebody, a woman that's ambitious, most of the time, like I don't like cooking. I'll be honest with you. I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'll clean if
Mm-hmm.
I have to, but like I have other things that I'm more passionate about,
100%. Yeah.
So, but I enjoy making money. I enjoy working and working on my business. So again, you just have to find what
No,
works for you.
same, right? Yeah, and it's like understanding that I'm not saying that I literally cook and clean all day long. I literally do run my own business and
Yeah.
have a pretty successful business. You know, I'm making six figures and stuff. But at the same time, I get to choose when I do want to cook. I get to choose when I want to clean. I get to choose that because I've created a business that allows me to not work 40, 50 hours a week.
Right. And that's something that's important to you, you value. And I don't think as women, we're meant to work that many hours. It leaves us drained, right? But I think it's also like you feel bad almost as women saying, I don't like to cook or I don't like to clean, but I'll hire somebody to do it.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like,
Right.
I think that so I posted a video yesterday on TikTok about being child free, and so many women are like, "Oh no, you have to have a kid, or you don't deserve to be on this planet if you're not going to reproduce." And I'm just like, we have so many women that are learning how to step into our power. That alone is hard on its own, of like choosing the lifestyles that we want to live, and then having the strength to use our voice to vocalize them to our, not only our partners but our communities, our friends, our family, like telling my parents I'm not having kids. And then we also, I think, hold the responsibility as a goddess who has, controlled our nervous system, learned emotional intelligence, to be the voices, the leading voices in content creating and
Yeah.
sharing an alternative lifestyle so that younger women can see that there are options out there for me. And
Totally.
then learning how to like hold that negativity from the world
Yes. And I love that you
for
said
them.
that. I didn't want children either. And it's something I battled for a long time because I felt ashamed
Hmm.
that as a woman, I didn't want children. And society and friends and family will be like, oh, when are you having kids? When are you doing this? It's almost like a status quo, like you need to in order to feel validated, right, as women. But you're right. It's up to us now to have a different perspective and be okay with it. Like my boyfriend has a daughter and I'm totally fine with being a stepmom because it's not mine. I get to
Yes.
choose how much I participate in this child's life. But I didn't want to be sacrificed. I didn't want to sacrifice myself, my time, my energy, my
Hmm.
body. I think women that are mothers, it's a beautiful thing. It's so sacrificial. And I
Yes.
praise it. I think it's amazing. It's just
I do
something.
too. I think they're superhumans too, especially
Yeah,
if they have like a successful career and they're mothers and they're like doing it all. I'm just like, kudos to
I know.
you.
Like good for you, but good for us for being
Yeah.
like, I don't need to do all of that. And like you said, I
Hmm.
don't, you make six figures or whatever you make, but I don't need to make $1 million because it doesn't feel fulfilled, right? Like we
Yeah.
live in this society where we feel like we have to do it all and we need to do it all to feel successful. And success is whatever makes you feel happy at the end of the day.
It's also a different energy when you know that you'll make $1 million one day. And
Right.
like you get to just enjoy the ride to that instead of being like, how can I create enough offers and enough things in my business and enough like reach enough of an audience to make 80K months or whatever it is to be a
Yeah.
millionaire, 85K a month, right? And I had a lot of inner work to do with that because when I went on my personal development journey, I did it because I was like, I want to be a millionaire. And I'm like, oh, millionaires really prioritize personal development. And that's
Yeah.
when I started the journey, right? Of like becoming growth minded, where I was like, I don't want to settle. And that's when I quit my corporate job. And I was like, I don't want a limitation on how much money I can earn. How
Yeah.
can I make more money? And that led me down this entire journey. And now I'm just like learning how to hold that vision that one day I will make
Yes.
$1 million, but I don't need to make that right now.
Right.
I'm really enjoying the ride in my feminine and my balanced masculine.
Yeah, I stopped making goals. Like I have a list of things that I want, but before my goals were very like kind of where you were saying they were very monetary driven and I need to hit by like quarter 1 this much in my business or this much on my job. 'Cause at the
Mhm.
time I was doing both. I still work a corporate job and do this on the side. Like I had so many financial goals and it always felt so restrictive for me. So now you're right. I'm
Yes.
like I always just say I don't even want to be a millionaire. Like or I do eventually, right? Like that is a goal, but
Right.
I
If
don't
it
have
happens
to
in
do
this
it.
life, great. If not,
I'll
that's
still
okay
be
too.
happy if I'm a 900,000 air, right? Like,
Worse. Oh my
like I'm
gosh.
not gonna feel any less fulfilled. So I think even saying to yourself,
100%.
like, it's fine, just let it go and enjoy the journey. I'm in the process of is my new stuff instead of using
Mm,
affirmations because I don't really believe your subconscious believes affirmations, but they
I've
will
never used them.
really. Oh, that's so interesting because you didn't fall into that trap. I made affirmation cards. My first business was I sold affirmation cards on Amazon. And it
That's so
helped for
cool.
that moment. But then I
Yeah.
realized, like, wait, my subconscious doesn't really believe most of this. So now I always just use, I'm in the
Mm,
process of. I'm in the process of creating a lucrative, abundant business that helps a lot of people. I'm in the process of creating a beautiful relationship instead of being like, okay, well, I need to, we need to be married by this year. And then, in 5 years from now, we need to have 5 real estate investment, like all this crazy stuff
yeah,
that I
no,
would do
all that's
before.
out the window for me too. And it's so freeing
It is.
to
It's
like tap into that unknown and say, I want magic in my life. I don't want to know what my life looks like in 5 years. I don't want to know what my life looks like in 1 year. And
yeah.
as soon as I let go of that is when I chose to live in my own apartment in New York. And that was 2 years ago. My life is totally different today than it was then.
I
And it's
love
because I'm just like riding and surfing in the unknown.
Yeah. And shifting that energy, right? You shifted, like you moved. And that's what I tell people just don't get stuck. As long as you
Yeah.
move, pivot, and shift energetically, you're telling God, the universe, whatever it is that you believe in, that you want more, but you have to move. You have to do something,
Hmm.
right? You might
And
not
that's
know
when
what
that
you're
masculine
doing,
comes in.
right? But just move, do
Yeah.
something.
Because I think that I fell into that trap too. I love this conversation because it's
I
like
know.
reminding me of my whole journey of when I got out of my masculine, I went fully into my feminine and I was like, I'm not working, I'm not doing anything for a whole year. I did not make a single dollar.
Right, how's that?
And I loved it.
Yeah. I love that.
And like luckily I had enough savings to be able to do that while living in New York City and like I still lived my life beautifully and abundantly. And I think it was because of that moment where now it's like everything flows to me easily, but
Mhm.
it's because I completely surrendered and I was like, this or more, like this or more. Like, I'm never going back to hustling and worrying about money. And I
Good.
never have since that moment. And even that whole year, there were moments where I was like, oh my God, it's been 3 months. Oh my God, it's been 6 months. What am I doing? And I was just like, you know what? God's got me. Like, I took a huge ass risk and I'm like doing this for my soul. I'll be rewarded. If I
I
don't
love
need to worry about it, I'm not going to worry about it.
And I love that everything did. I mean, that's just an example of like it all worked out, right? Where you could have spent that energy just worrying and kind of pushing against the grain and maybe going back to work into something that you weren't feeling good about or fulfilled with. And then you would have just continued in that cycle, right? Like in the cycle of unhappiness and things that don't feel
Because
like
of fear.
right.
All because of fear. And every time I'm noticing, am I making this decision because of fear that I don't trust that God loves me?
Right.
Like, then I'm going to stay stuck in that world.
Yeah.
And I'm
And you
not
never
here
feel
to live in that. I'm here to live in like the 5D, Like,
yes.
let's go.
Yes, I love that. You make your own reality, right? We all can be creators of our reality. We just choose not to for
Yeah,
the most part, but we absolutely can. And I love that. I love our conversation. I can go on and on forever.
I know. Amazing. So, how can my audience work with you?
Yes, so you can find me on Instagram, and my link is on there for all my programs, especially this next one that's coming up. So I'm excited for that. But it's really tapping into your power. That's what it's called. It's Tap Into Your Power Dating Masterclass. And I help women just go through all the processes of like let go of scarcity, the need mentality for a man, and then getting really clear and concise to what it is that you want out of life. And then becoming the energy of the one or the one that got away. right? There's no in between.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then not entertaining anything that's not for you, because we do that out of boredom sometimes. We'll entertain men, we'll be like, yes, this is wine and dine me, but we know that that's not going anywhere. So really getting away from that energy. And then once you start dating someone, I do tap into even how do you hold your standards? How do you keep your standards? How do you keep your boundaries? How to stay true to yourself? And then
So
there'll be other
important.
programs to follow, but I feel like I'm excited about this one the most because that's just the energy I hate. So many people talk to me about their dating issues, right? And not knowing what to do. So I feel like it's going to be a powerful one.
What you said about not entertaining things that you know aren't going anywhere, I truly believe that is kind of with my relationship with money, where it was like, I'm not going to entertain things that aren't for me.
Mhm.
That created the space for the universe to be like, oh, she's serious, you know?
I
And I
love
think that's the same thing with like relationships, where it's like, how serious are you? The universe will test you, and it's going to send you people that seem tempting, but you'll know that they're not for you. Are you still going to entertain it or not? And the more you say no to the things that aren't for you, the quicker the things that are for you come into your life.
Absolutely. And I love that you gave us that perspective about money, because a lot of people will stay stuck in a job or something because they feel like they need it. But when you let go
Hmm.
of that grasp, like let the universe, let God take over. And you're right. I love that. Definitely. I feel like we need to do a part two after this long conversation.
I know. I think we talked about so much. I'm like excited to go back and listen to it. And then maybe we could pick like a topic or two to go deeper into. I
Yeah,
think
I
that'd
would
be
love
really
that.
cool.